Sebastian wiped sweat from his brow as the African sun beat down mercilessly on his back. 3 months into his backpacking journey across the continent, he had taken this temporary shepherd job out of necessity. His funds had dwindled faster than expected, and the small village on the edge of the savannah offered him work and shelter, if not exactly a warm welcome. "Come back," he called to a stray sheep, wandering dangerously close to the lake's edge. That's when Sebastian noticed it, a strange, misshapen lump in the sand near the water. It was oddly large, perhaps 4 feet across, with a curved surface that didn't match the natural contours of the shoreline. Most peculiar was how his sheep seemed transfixed by it, several of them standing at the edge of their enclosure, staring. Sebastian squinted against the glare. Was it merely an unusual formation of sand, or something more? After months traversing Africa's wilderness, he'd developed a healthy respect for the continent's dangers. Just 2 weeks ago, he'd barely escaped a close encounter with a Cape buffalo that had charged without warning. The week before that, he'd stumbled upon a puff adder during his morning rounds. "Not worth investigating alone," he muttered, turning back to his flock. By midday, several villagers had gathered near the lake, pointing and gesturing toward the mysterious lump. Sebastian tried to focus on his work, but found his eyes continually drawn to the growing crowd. He recognized his employer among them, the man's weathered face creased with concern as he surveyed the scene. Sebastian reluctantly approached the group, keeping a respectful distance. Despite his efforts to learn their language, communication remained difficult. The villagers eyed him with familiar suspicion, the outsider's burden he'd carried since arriving. "What is it?" he asked, gesturing toward the lump. An elderly man with deep wrinkles etched into his dark skin shook his head slowly. "Not know," he replied in broken English. "From water, maybe. Dangerous, maybe." Sebastian nodded thoughtfully. If it had emerged from the lake, that narrowed the possibilities. Nothing living in these waters grew to that size, except perhaps crocodiles. But the shape was all wrong. If it had come from the water and remained motionless for hours, it was either dead or not aquatic at all. As Sebastian contemplated these options, he noticed the villagers had begun to step back, their gazes fixed not on the lump, but on him. His employer caught his eye and made a prodding motion with his hand. "You go," the man said firmly. "You look—" Sebastian's stomach tightened. "Me? Why me?" The elderly villager answered, "You have seen many things. Not from here, not afraid." That was hardly true. Sebastian was terrified of countless things in this unfamiliar land, but he understood the underlying message. As an outsider, he was expendable. If something went wrong, the village would lose nothing of value. His employer's expression hardened. Sebastian recognized the implicit threat, refuse, and his position as shepherd might disappear along with the meager wages he desperately needed. Without this job, he'd be stranded in a remote village with no means to continue his journey or even survive. "Fine," Sebastian said, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. "I'll look." A young villager handed him a long stick, a poor weapon if the lump turned out to be dangerous, but better than nothing. With each reluctant step toward the mysterious shape, Sebastian's mouth grew drier. The sand shifted beneath his worn boots as he approached, his shadow stretching before him in the afternoon light. From this close, he could see small grains of sand occasionally sliding down the sides of the lump, as if something beneath had moved slightly. His hands shook as he extended the stick, hovering it inches above the surface. "Come on, Sebastian," he whispered to himself. "It's probably nothing." With a swift downward motion, he poked the stick into the sand. Instead of the resistance he expected, the stick sank into something surprisingly yielding. He prodded harder, and to his horror, the entire mound began to shift. Sebastian jumped back, nearly tripping over his own feet as the sand cascaded away from a rising form. Adrenaline flooded his system, his fight-or-flight response screaming at him to run, but curiosity rooted him in place. As the creature emerged from its sandy covering, Sebastian's terror transformed into astonishment. A small elephant, no more than a few months old, shook sand from its wrinkled hide and blinked drowsily in the sunlight. Its trunk curled upward in a lazy stretch as it yawned, seemingly unbothered by the audience it had gathered. A collective gasp rose from the villagers, followed by murmurs of relief and delight. Sebastian's employer approached, standing beside him as they watched the baby elephant. "Sand bath," the man explained, pantomiming the action. Sleep. Family gone. Sebastian understood immediately. The young elephant had been enjoying a sand bath, a common behavior for elephants to protect their skin from insects and the sun, when it had fallen asleep. Its herd had moved on without realizing one of their youngest members was missing. The elderly man approached next, pointing toward distant trees. Herd there, mourning. Sebastian nodded, realizing why the villagers had been so concerned. An elephant separated from its herd was not just a tragedy for the animal, it could become a danger to their crops and potentially draw predators to the area. As the village's most experienced tracker organized a small group to locate the herd, Sebastian was surprised to find himself invited to join them. His employer clapped him on the shoulder with unexpected warmth. Brave, the man said simply with a nod of approval. 2 hours later, they located the elephant herd grazing in a clearing about 3 miles from the village. Under the guidance of the village elders, they carefully coaxed the baby elephant toward its family, maintaining a respectful distance as the young one trumpeted excitedly upon seeing its relatives. The matriarch of the herd raised her trunk, catching their scent on the wind before moving protectively toward her lost member. The baby rushed forward, greeting its family with enthusiastic trunk touches as the humans retreated to a safe distance. That evening, Sebastian found himself welcomed at the communal fire for the first time since his arrival. The villagers recounted the day's events with animated gestures and growing embellishments that needed no translation. Children mimicked the baby elephant's sleepy emergence from the sand, drawing laughter from the adults. His employer offered him a cup of the village's special brew, a rare honor for an outsider. Tomorrow, the man said, teach more words. You stay longer? Sebastian smiled, realizing that in this small village, halfway across the world from everything familiar, he had finally found a moment of belonging. Yes, he replied. I'd like that. As the stars appeared overhead, Sebastian reflected on how quickly fear could transform into wonder, and how a sleeping elephant buried in sand had built a bridge between worlds that had seemed impossibly distant only hours before.